There's a line most people never notice when they cross it. The line between money stress that is a normal response to a real situation and something that has quietly become its own thing, running in the background whether or not there's actually something to worry about. Almost everyone worries about money sometimes. That's not what this video is about. This is about something more specific. The moment when the worry stops being a reaction to circumstances and starts being a pattern that shows up regardless of them. Most people who've crossed that line don't know they've crossed it, because it didn't happen all at once. It happened slowly. 1 month, 1 year, one unanswered bill at a time, until the anxiety became the background noise of ordinary life. There are 7 specific signs that mark that shift. Not how much you worry, but what kind of worrying you're doing. By the end of this, you'll know exactly where you stand. And more importantly, you'll know why that distinction matters. Start here, because this part matters. Normal financial concern is real. It's appropriate. It's present in virtually every adult who is paying attention to their life. If rent goes up and you feel the squeeze, that's a real response to a real situation. If an unexpected car repair lands and you spend a few days figuring out how to cover it, that's a normal person navigating a normal difficulty. If you check your bank balance more carefully in the week before payday, that is not anxiety. That is math. Normal money stress has a shape. It arrives when something happens. It focuses on a specific problem. It eases when the problem is handled, or at least when a path forward is visible. It is proportional to the actual situation in front of you. That's the key word, proportional. Normal financial concern moves with your circumstances. When things are tighter, it increases. When things stabilize, it settles. It is responsive. What this video is about is something different. Not the kind of money stress that responds to circumstances, but the kind that has stopped needing a reason. The kind that is present on the good months too. The kind that doesn't fully resolve, even when the specific problem does. The kind that has stopped feeling like a reaction and started feeling like a permanent condition. So here are the 7 signs that mark that difference. Sign 1. You avoid financial information. Not because you forgot, but because looking feels dangerous. There's a version of not checking the bank app that is just forgetfulness. And there's a version that is something else entirely. The version that is something else looks like this. You know you should look. You might have reminded yourself 3 times today, but every time you move toward it, something stops you. A pull toward literally anything else. A sudden urgent need to do something that is not that. This is not laziness. This is avoidance as a protective mechanism. The brain has learned that looking at financial information produces a feeling it wants to prevent, so it intercepts the action before the feeling can arrive. When avoidance is the response to information rather than to circumstances, that's sign 1. Sign 2. You check compulsively, and it doesn't help. The opposite pattern is equally telling. Some people don't avoid, they overmonitor, checking the account balance 4, 5, 6 times in a day. Not because anything has changed, because there's a brief moment of relief right after checking that dissolves almost immediately and requires another check to restore. Normal financial monitoring has a purpose and a stopping point. You check, you have the information, you're done. Compulsive checking is different. The checking isn't gathering information. It's managing anxiety. And because the anxiety doesn't actually live in the account balance, checking the balance doesn't fix it. It just creates the temporary illusion of control. If you recognize either pattern, the avoidance, or the compulsive monitoring, you're looking at sign 2. Sign 3. The mental math runs constantly, even when you're not thinking about money. This one is harder to see from the inside, because it has become so automatic it no longer feels like a choice. It's the ongoing background calculation, the one running during dinner with friends. How much will this cost? Can the card handle it? What's left after this? The one running during a work meeting. If I lose this job, how many months before things collapse? The one running at 2 a.m. that wasn't invited. That goes through the numbers again, as if running them one more time will produce a different result. Normal financial thinking has an on and an off switch. When the mental math has become a permanent background process, when it runs during conversations, during meals, during moments that should be fully present, that's sign 3. Sign 4. You cannot be fully present in moments that cost money. This one intersects with sign 3 but it deserves its own space because there's a specific kind of absence that financial anxiety produces. The experience of being somewhere while simultaneously not being there. A birthday dinner. A weekend trip. A holiday that is supposed to feel celebratory. And underneath all of it, the calculation. Not loud, sometimes barely audible, but present enough that the moment never fully lands. Present enough that you look back at photographs and feel like you were adjacent to the experience, not inside it. Anyone who's been carrying this knows that specific grief, the moments you couldn't fully have because the worry came with you. When financial anxiety is consistently editing your ability to be present in your own life, that's sign 4. Sign 5. Your body responds before your brain does. This one doesn't get named often enough. A notification sound. A piece of mail you recognize. Someone mentioning a bill, a payment, a financial conversation that's coming. And before any thought has formed, before you've processed what it is or what it means, something happens in your body. A drop in the stomach, a tightening in the chest, a shift in breathing so slight you almost miss it. This is not metaphor. This is a nervous system that has learned to treat financial information as a threat signal and is responding the way it responds to threats with the same physiological cascade that prepares a body for danger. Normal financial concern might produce worry. Chronic financial anxiety produces a physical stress response that arrives before the worry does. When your body has developed its own alarm system for money, that's sign 5. Sign 6. You edit what you share and who you spend time with based on money. This is the relational cost of financial anxiety, and it's one of the most isolating parts of carrying it. The invitation you decline without saying why. The excuse that sounds plausible and costs you nothing except the truth. The partner you don't tell the full number to. The friend whose life seems easier. Whose questions feel too close. Who you keep at a precise distance from the actual situation. Editing social life around money occasionally. That's a practical reality. But there's a version of this that has become structural, where the editing is automatic, where you have developed a complete parallel account of your financial life that you maintain for everyone around you, including sometimes yourself, where the secrecy has become its own weight, separate from and heavier than the financial situation itself. When financial anxiety has consistently altered who you let in and how close, that's sign 6. Sign 7. It no longer feels like a situation. It feels like who you are. This is the one that takes the longest to arrive and does the most damage when it does. At some point, for many people carrying chronic financial anxiety, the story shifts. It moves from, I am in a difficult financial situation, to, I am someone who is bad with money, from a circumstance to an identity. And once it lives there, in identity, everything changes. Because you don't try to solve something that is simply who you are. You just carry it. This is not a character verdict. This is what chronic anxiety does when it goes unnamed for long enough. It stops feeling like a response to something external and starts feeling like a description of something internal. If the financial stress in your life has started to feel less like a problem you have and more like a fact about who you are, that's sign 7. And it's the most important one to name. Here's the thing that confuses most people who are living inside this. The financial anxiety doesn't go away when things get a little better. A raise arrives. A debt gets paid off. A month goes smoothly, and the relief is real. But it's partial, and it doesn't last. And the question underneath that is one of the most quietly devastating questions this experience produces. Why doesn't it get better when things get better? Here's what's actually happening. At a certain point, and this is consistent across the research on financial anxiety, the anxiety stops being primarily a response to circumstances and becomes a self-sustaining pattern. The nervous system, which learned at some point that money is a source of danger, doesn't wait for danger to arrive anymore. It anticipates it. It scans for it. It produces the stress response preemptively, because preemptive alerting kept things manageable once, and the nervous system is running that program on repeat. This is not a malfunction. This is a nervous system doing exactly what nervous systems do, protecting you from a threat it learned to expect. The problem is that the protection mechanism has become more expensive than the threat it's protecting against. The anxiety is no longer telling you useful information about your current situation. It's telling you information about a pattern your nervous system memorized, sometimes years ago, and is still running as if it's current. This is why the good month doesn't fix it. This is why paying off one card doesn't produce the relief you expected. This is why knowing your situation is manageable and feeling like your situation is manageable are two completely different experiences. The situation can change. The pattern doesn't change on its own. It changes when it's interrupted, deliberately, specifically, with the right tools. But the interruption starts here, with the name. For anyone watching this who recognize themselves in more than one of those signs, there's a resource in the description built specifically for this moment. Not a budgeting tool, not a debt calculator, something that works at the level this video has been working at. The specific exercises that help a brain begin to separate the pattern from the identity, so that "I am bad with money" starts to feel less like a permanent fact and more like a story that can be examined. The link is in the description and in the pinned comment. Naming this does not solve it. That's worth saying plainly, because a lot of content in this space implies that awareness is the destination. It isn't. But naming it changes what's possible. And that's not a small thing. Here's specifically what changes. When financial anxiety is unnamed, it operates as a global judgment. Everything feels like evidence of something wrong with you. Every avoidance, every compulsive check, every edited invitation, they all go into the same pile labeled, "This is who I am." When it's named as a pattern, a specific, understandable, interruptible nervous system pattern, the pile stops meaning what it meant. The avoidance isn't evidence of irresponsibility. It's a protective response from a brain managing a perceived threat. The mental math running constantly isn't proof that you're obsessed or broken. It's a nervous system doing its job. Badly calibrated, but doing its job. The identity shift, "I am bad with money," isn't a fact about your character. It's a conclusion a stressed brain assembled from a series of events that had explanations that had nothing to do with who you are. This is not who you are, this is what happened to you. And understanding the difference, this sounds like a small thing and is not a small thing, is the first real shift. The one step for this week is this. Go back through the 7 signs. Not to diagnose yourself, not to quantify how bad it is. Just to write down the one sign that landed hardest, the one that felt most like a description of something you've been living. Write it down. Give it a name that is yours. That's it. Not a system, not a plan. One sign, named, on paper. That is the first interruption, and it counts. If this opens something you want to go deeper on, there's a resource in the description built exactly for that. The specific exercises that begin interrupting the pattern this video named. Link in the description and in the pinned comment. Which of the 7 signs felt most like it was describing your life? And how long have you been living with it before today? So here's what's true now that wasn't true 20 minutes ago. There is a line between normal financial concern and chronic financial anxiety. That line is not about how much you worry. It's about what kind of worrying you're doing, whether it's proportional and responsive, or whether it has become a self-sustaining pattern that runs regardless of what your circumstances are doing. And if several of those signs landed, if you recognize the avoidance, the compulsive checking, the mental math that never fully stops, the moments you couldn't fully have, the body that responds before the brain does, the social life that has been quietly edited, the slow drift from "I have a problem" to "I am the problem," then what you've been carrying has a name now. Chronic financial anxiety. Not a character flaw, not evidence of irresponsibility. A nervous system pattern, specific, understandable, and interruptible. The person who arrived at this video wondering if what they were feeling was still normal already knew something was off. That's why they searched, that's why they stayed. That instinct was not wrong. It was the first honest look. And the first honest look is always the hardest one. You've already taken it. The one step, the sign that landed hardest, named on paper. Not a system, not a commitment. One name this week. That's the whole ask, and you've already done the harder part. You understood why. The step is easy by comparison.